Okay, boom, we are live. Episode 21, officially past the awesome milestone of episode 20 when we were live in New York for the World Cup final. We'll talk about that. A lot to unpack there with the final. We kind of gave a preview last time, but nonetheless, we're back home now. Episode 21 brought to you by GOLZtv. Guys, GOLZtv, where you can find all of your unlimited free footy content today. Head to GOLZtv now to consume as much content as your heart desires. And before I get started with the video for today, of course, as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's free. And more importantly, I would love to see us get, 20 plus likes on this video just to kind of see what you guys like to hear from us. And of course, if you have any take regarding any one of our spicy opinions, comment down below. Always want to hear back from the community. As usual, I am joined by our mainstay host for Box to Box, Alina, aka GGSK, Andre Gutierrez. Guys, World Cup final has come and gone. How are we feeling? Alina, let's start with you. We didn't get a chance to record with you. Obviously, you got a million things going on with school and whatnot this month. But now that we've kind of decompressed from Sunday, how did you enjoy the final?
Man, the final for me was honestly surreal. Like I was enjoying watching, and I didn't expect Argentina to go up 2-0, and especially in the style that they did. That first half was just shock. And then the subs, I think Dembele came out and then Giroud came out like the 39th or 40th minute, and I was like, oh my gosh, like where's the champs taking this? And the second half was one of the best second halves I've seen in all of football. I was actually watching some highlights from like the previous World Cup since like 1998, I believe that was, which was, I think it was France versus Brazil, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And France won that with a red card. And I was just like kind of like watching some of the highlights, and it was honestly one of the most entertaining back-to-back finals I've ever seen. Not just in a World Cup, in anything, including like club football, Champions League, Europa League, Euros, Copa America, all of those. It was good. It was good.
Love it.
And of course, included in penalties, which is even better.
Oh, the penalties! The penalties were so dramatic, so dramatic. We'll talk about it, but man, Andre and I, for those who didn't watch episode 20, Andre and I were together in New York City for the episode 20 recording, which took place on Friday before the third place match on Saturday, and then Sunday we met up in person for the final. There's some videos I think we're going to upload this week, just small recording stuff just to give everybody insights into what our emotions were like. But it was insane. Andre, now looking back at Sunday, obviously there was a lot of you and I shared a lot of emotion that day, but now looking back at it a few days later, how'd you feel, man? I mean, we talked about it a little bit before on episode 20, but was this the best final or even best game you'd ever seen?
I don't know if I would say best. I keep hearing the word, this is the best game ever. I mean, if you really think about it, France didn't show up until the 75th minute. So it's not like both teams were playing really well. And then after the 75th minute, Argentina pulled in Argentina like they did against Holland, and they decided to not fucking defend anymore. And they said, you know what, fuck it. Like, we have a two goal cushion. Go ahead, Mbappe. Let's see what you can do. So I wouldn't say best. I would say most entertaining. Yes, absolutely. Most entertaining final I've watched in a long time. Most entertaining piece of sports I've watched in a long time. I think you can start talking about that, making, your argument that the final was, head to head with like some of the best Super Bowls that we've seen, or some of the best, World Series Game 7s that we've seen. And just, the fact that it's football, right? You've got extra time, you've got penalty kicks, somebody has to win. But yeah, it was pretty wide open from, I would say, like the 80th minute on. In addition to that, the one thing that I will say is I think one of the most fun things that we do is we get to give our opinion on things that happen around the world. And obviously the World Cup being that moment where half of the planet like stops for a second and watches a game. I would say overall, this tournament does feel like it was the best tournament or the most fun tournament that I've watched since I remember. And you and I were talking about it, Jose, in terms of like, what are the first tournaments that we remember? 98, I think for most of us, if not all of us here in the room, is kind of the one where, we remember R9 and Zidane scoring 2 goals in the final, and, just France winning it for the first time on home soil. So like all those things combined, like made it for a very theatrical, ending. But I think all in, with all of the upsets that we had, with the storylines like Messi, with the storylines like Ronaldo, Mexico and USA, high expectations, low expectations. I don't know what to expect. Like, there were so many things to look for in this World Cup, and I think it went by way too fast. I'm sure you guys can agree with me. I woke up the next day being like, okay, what time's the next game? I was like, oh shit, we got to wait 4 more years.
It's all over.
But all in, it was incredible, especially being in New York. That shit was, we got to do that, in 4 years from now, whether it's we go to the final, whether it's we get together again, but we have to do it again. That was incredible. And plus, I will say, every time I watch a game with Jose, whether it's, World Cup, Champions League, a big game, it ends up being a banger. Like, the last time we watched a World Cup game together was France-Argentina when it was 4-3. We watched Liverpool lose to Atletico de Madrid right before COVID. Like, that was one of the last Champions League games we watched together. So all in, I will say you're that talisman of good luck.
for at least an entertainment perspective, yes, 100%. I agree. I think, and just kind of wrap up what you guys are saying. I kind of agree with Andre a little bit in the sense that, I got asked, I got a flood of text messages after the game, and it wasn't. There was quite a few congratulating me as if I'm Argentinian on the win. I think everybody understands how much of I won't go as far as saying like Messi fanboy. I feel like that has like its own kind of stigma attached to it. Mm-hmm. I feel rightfully he is the greatest player of all time. I think it's solidified now. But I think the text messages that came in outside of the congratulations were the question: was this the best game I'd ever seen? I think you have to define best, right? Like you mentioned before, France didn't show up. I wouldn't say didn't show up. I would say
they just couldn't get into the game. They couldn't get into the game.
I think Argentina had a great game plan for how to isolate the wings, for how to bottle up, guys like Dembele, so that it was only Mbappe that could pose a threat. I think they executed it perfectly. Had they not, I mean, who knows? France could have run away with it. We have no idea. But I think that they just had a game plan and executed it perfectly. But Mbappe is Mbappe, and he shows up when he needs to. And, individual moments of brilliance kept France in the game, 100%. But the better overall team on the day was Argentina. With that said, though, best game ever, I think what makes it the best game ever or in that running is the fact that it's a final and the fact that it had penalties. The drama is what made this one of the best games of all time. But if we're focused solely on the football, right? Or even the moment, I think Liverpool fans would argue the comeback against Barcelona was one of the greatest games they've ever witnessed. I think Barcelona fans would argue that PSG comeback was the greatest game they ever witnessed. I think for me, the greatest open back and forth game from the get-go, it was unlike anything I've seen. For me, was like a Champions League semifinal between City and Spurs.
Yes, I completely
agree. Son showed up in a massive way. City was answering every goal that Son scored back and forth. Spurs eventually go on to make it to the final, but it was just again, it all depends. It's subjective. It all depends on how you define best. 100%. But nonetheless, World Cup final was amazing. I think I agree with Andre too. The in-person, viewing experience is not matched by anything, in my opinion. It would have been completely different had I watched this at home with my wife or my parents or whatever, but not that wouldn't have been exciting. I just think the element of being around so many fans all at once, whether they were cheering for Argentina or for France. Holy shit, it was massive. I loved every minute of it. So great time in New York for episode 20. Thinking back now, guys, on the World Cup as a whole, collectively, World Cup 2022, and what we can expect for 2026. I think a lot of people wanted to focus on the drama of Qatar hosting it, what they stand for, people trying to remove football from the conversation because they didn't support outright what the 2022 World Cup meant. I think we all probably have mixed feelings now, right? Like this was actually one of the craziest World Cups I've seen. Upsets from beginning to end. A little bit of destiny on the side of Argentina. I can't remember another time where I felt like destiny was carrying a team. Maybe 06 France. Right, when they won it, or when they were in the final, because I thought maybe Zidane's last run, this is probably going to be it. And then Materazzi had different ideas. But, at the end of the day, I don't know. This felt like a different kind of tournament, right? I don't know. Have you guys ever gotten this sense of you feel like a team in a World Cup just has again, like destiny or fate on their side, and they're going to find a way to upset any team in the knockout rounds, even if they didn't perform up to a certain standard in groups. I mean, have you guys ever seen anything like that?
I mean, the second that Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia in that first game of the group stage, I immediately thought of Spain in 2010, and I said, watch them go all the way. I even told my dad, I was like, watch them go all the way to the final and win it. Like, it's one of those things that, like, it's almost like written in the stars, right? Like you start by like facing adversity early. That way you get it out of the way, right? Like the Mexico game, I keep thinking back of that freaking Mexico game. And granted, if Mexico would have played against Argentina the way that we played against Saudi Arabia, I think it would have been a completely different story. If that team showed up like with the will to win and not just sitting back waiting for a counterattack, it would have been a completely different match. Even if we got a tie, the group changes drastically. Argentina go to the other side of the bracket. You name it. Like there's so many things that could have happened in this World Cup for Argentina to stumble. And then once you get through, to knockout rounds, obviously I think the most obvious one is Holland. They showed up against Croatia, which was payback from 4 years ago. Same scoreline, just flipped. But the game against Holland, man, like they had to grind it out and they won in PKs. And then the fact that they had to do it again against France, to me, is just one of those things. Like you said, I don't want to say that it was destiny or fate, but I do think that they had an extra chip on their shoulder being like, okay, this might be Leo's last dance. Like this has to be it. Yeah. So we're going to win by all means necessary. And that's what I was telling a lot of people yesterday that were asking me, like, what do you think about Argentina? I'm like, obviously I can't stand them, but in finals, being a coach myself, it doesn't matter how pretty you play. It doesn't matter how well you play. Like, look at Mourinho. Just find a way to fucking win. Simple as that. And I think that's what Argentina got to at the end. Even though I will say the first half, I would give them like the first 40, 45 minutes. I mean, you and I were watching it live, and France couldn't connect a pass, and Argentina was all over them. Like every single press, they would get the ball back. Every single 50-50, they would win. Every header, they would win. Every diagonal ball would be perfect. Like they just, they turned it on at the right time, and everybody cohesively. Yeah. Yes. And so, and you and I were talking about it. This game is not going to be won by who plays better. It's by who wants it more. And it just, you got to be hungry in a final. You got to do, like I said, by all means necessary, do whatever it takes to win. So that's
look at France was a team that was kind of resting on its skill, on its talent. I think anybody in the room knows the fact that France was the better team.
And the fact that they had won it the year before, or 4 years ago. I don't know if you guys saw Mbappe's like little speech at halftime. Have you guys watched that on social media?
No.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, so he was in the locker room and he came in and he basically said, like, we can't be worse than what we've done. Like that was absolutely horrible. And he was basically being sarcastic, but he was like, hey, by the way, I'll just remind you, it's a World Cup final. Like there's a reason why these dudes are flying on the field and we're not. So the second we change that attitude, the game's going to change completely. And sure enough, I think I also will give credit to the Champs for making those subs. It was ballsy. You and I were talking about it, Jose. Like, it's kind of early. Just let them finish the half, whatever, Like, what does that do to a young player's mentality? Like Dembele, even Giroud, like, he was up there with, I think he scored, 3-4 goals this tournament. So he was kind of your guy. Yeah. And so the fact that you make that change before half was pretty much a shock to the system, but obviously in the long run, it ended up working out to a certain extent. So I don't know, all in, like there were just little decisions here and there that I think ultimately did write the story for Messi. And looking back at the whole tournament as a whole, not just that specific game or not just the loss against Saudi Arabia, but all in, I think it was one of those things that like it was bound to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. So, Alina, is Messi now the GOAT, the greatest footballer of all time?
Oh man, I feel like that question has been asked to me, like all my friends, or like when I'm streaming, everyone like in the chat is like, so who do you prefer, Messi or Ronaldo? And what I always say is, I genuinely think that Messi is one of the most talented, if not the most talented player to ever play. But I don't think anything can rival Ronaldo's professionalism and like the athletic
work ethic and all that
portion. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's what I always say. Like I feel like what I do is I try to like look at every player and take what I enjoy or what I appreciate and respect from each one. And I think the things that Messi can do, Ronaldo would only dream of doing, and vice versa. So I know now with this argument that, like, well, clearly Messi won the World Cup, so I feel like a lot of people are turning into Messi as a GOAT because Ronaldo couldn't do it, but you also have to remember the team around him. And I do think, I mean, I don't even know what happened with Portugal, honestly.
That's a great point
Against
that you just
Morocco.
made. That's a great point that Alina just made, though. The team aspect of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
go ahead, keep going. I don't want to disrupt
Oh,
you.
yeah. One example that I also wanted to mention is, well, two examples actually, because a lot of people say that the Euros is actually a lot harder to win than a World Cup, and Ronaldo did that with an average, I would say, Portuguese team. I remind me who scored that. I think it was Eder with that long shot.
Yeah, well,
That's
Yeah, I
if
think
he
so.
takes
I
that
think so.
if he takes that another
Yeah.
20, 100 times, he's probably gonna have
It's
like
not
a
gonna score.
5% success rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. In my mind, what I'm thinking, well, that was much harder to achieve because he actually carried. Not saying that Messi didn't carry, but
Mhm.
I think the team, the Argentinian team, and the Argentinian players, and the coach, and the style, and everything about how Argentina played this World Cup was all revolved around the Messi game. Whereas for
Mhm.
Portugal, I mean, Ronaldo wasn't even playing. And I remember against Portugal, excuse me, not against Portugal, against Morocco, that the game that Portugal lost, all they were doing was just going down the wings and crossing it
Yeah.
every single
Yeah.
time. There was no creativity,
It's so repetitive.
nothing
Yeah.
new, very predictable.
Mhm.
And the last thing I wanted to mention is the World Cup that Messi lost. He had two chances to win the World Cup. So the one he lost against Germany, I think, is a perfect example of what could happen if the team around you isn't as good. So I'm kind of like comparing the two Argentinas. Like this Argentina was much better, and I would argue even France was better than that Germany team that won against Argentina. So it was even more
They
impressive.
definitely were. They definitely were.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's about the time. It's about the team. There's a lot of factors. that go into it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you brought that point up about the teams, right? Because Andre and I had this conversation a little bit, but I thought it was such a shame that Portugal didn't. And maybe it has something to do with the person, maybe it doesn't. I have no idea. I don't know what the motivation of the broader team is, but when you compare Argentina to Portugal, Argentina's players, who in my opinion, if you were to compare them player to player, Portugal has a much better team on paper. They just do. There's so much talent on that team. And Argentina has a lot of decent players, I would say pretty good players, a lot of experience, probably more than anything else. And for some reason, Argentina's team was just so motivated. So it's like they had a whole nation on their back and they're just rallying around Messi. That was the motivation. It was like, yeah, we would love to win this for our country, but more importantly, would love to win this for who we consider to be the GOAT. And we're so motivated to do that. We will put our life on the line if needed. We will give everything and nothing will be, what we left on the pitch. It's all there. It'll all be on display for everybody to see versus Portugal, who has significantly more talent, yet doesn't have that chemistry, that ability to come together for their GOAT and try to get to a final and what will probably be his last World Cup ever. I don't know why there wasn't the motivation. Was it all the antics around Ronaldo heading into the World Cup? Maybe. I have no idea. But at the end of the day, for whatever reason, they're just not battling for their GOAT the way that Argentina did for theirs. And I think it speaks volumes, maybe at least, about the person, the player. But at the end of the day, I think that's what separated the two teams. I would have loved to see a GOAT final. I think that's what it would have broke the internet. Ronaldo versus Messi in the World Cup final would have been amazing.
That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, and it would have been fantastic. But at the end of the day, right, I think, like Lena said, Argentina just found a way to make it work. All the players coming together on the same page in a way that they couldn't do back in 2014 for whatever reason. But that question around who the GOAT is, I think if you're basing it off of this World Cup victory alone, I understand. Me personally, I think it was the last trophy in the trophy cabinet that he was missing, and he got it. He's been to 2 World Cup finals. Ronaldo hasn't been to a single one. And, there are instances on Ronaldo's resume, just like there are on Messi's, where they've lost crucial, finals or didn't advance in a specific tournament. I think in 2014, right before the Real Madrid three-peat, and he was coming off of, actually, in 2014, Andre, you guys were coming off of. You guys didn't win it that year, was it? Was it 2015?
Champions League.
Yeah, for Champions League, because he was coming off of like some stellar form when Portugal was knocked out in the groups.
I don't know. I think
he
won it that year.
It was right before the three-peat. I want to say, but he had some crazy records he was setting at Real Madrid, and then could, for whatever reason, just back then wasn't able to translate the form. So I don't know what it is. It's sometimes either Ronaldo or it's his team around him, but Portugal just for whatever reason just wasn't able to do it. I don't know. But regardless of how you define GOAT, I think no matter what, this final was amazing. I loved every part of it. I think the World Cup has a new standard in terms of entertainment. This shit better be mimicked in a big way in 2026. And I'm hoping that we even see some of this because the rumors flying around that U.S. is going to host the Copa America in 2024. We'll see if that ends up happening. I would love to see international football be this entertaining, regardless of what region we're talking about, what confederation. I think hopefully this opened the eyes for casual American fans everywhere that football is a magical sport, and magical is not used lightly there. Like I really felt like this final was like some kind of weird voodoo magic where the GOAT was destined to walk away with something big. So anyway, World Cup finals in the books. I loved every aspect of it. But we're about 20 minutes into our show now, which means that it is time to really kind of put our stamp on the individual performances that we saw in the World Cup final. I don't expect this part to take too long, but I do want to have a chance for us to come together and put together our combined 11. We did it for every basically round of the knockouts, minus maybe the semifinals, because it was, at that point, it didn't make a ton of sense. But with the combined 11 now for the World Cup final, let's go through position by position really fast, kind of come to an agreement. Let's see who shakes out as the top performers. I'm willing to bet it's going to be, probably Argentina for a good amount of the players, but we'll see. And we'll kind of just take it one player at a time. 4-3-3 is how we've been forming these lineups. Is that good for you guys?
I like it. Yeah, works for me.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And so let's focus less on the score, more on the individual performance, because again, I think, France had a couple penalties, Argentina had a penalty. I mean, I really want to focus on the gameplay itself. So if you guys can try to remove some of the goals from your brains for a few minutes. But let's start in the back with keeper. I think, is it easy just to? I mean, he won keeper of the tournament, so is it easy to just lay up Emi Martinez here? I mean, I want to get Andre's takes on Emi Martinez because I know he loves him so incredibly much. Emi Martinez, your guy, Andre. Is he the keeper of the final?
Yeah, he's the keeper of the final. I don't think he's a keeper of the tournament, though. I think that prize was bogus. I think Livakovic did a lot more because Argentina won in penalty kicks. I get it. You give it to the guy, but. For this final
they won 3-0 against Croatia.
No, I know. I'm saying in the final, like
in the finals
because he won
penalties.
Yeah. I'm like, just give it to the guy. But Livakovic had a much more, I don't know what to say, solid. I want to look at stats and all that shit, whatever. But it just felt to me like Livakovic had a better tournament. But for this final, obviously, I think Lurie had a couple of mistakes. I think the third goal from Argentina, where Messi found that rebound and just kind of tapped it in, just parry it away to a corner, right? Like it's the 116th minute of a World Cup final. What are you trying to do? Like, I don't get it. That
was kind of weird, right? It's like it was a weird goal.
It didn't make sense. So all in, I just think Emi Martinez for everything he's done and just like how vocal he's been. He at least has backed it up, which good for him. Now, when you start talking about how big of a piece of shit he's off the field, then that's a completely different issue. But yes, Emi Martinez.
Emi Martinez is his attitude. He seems kind of crazy. Like, I'll put it this way:
he's weird.
I listened to Ben Foster talk on his podcast talk about playing with Emi, and I think there's even an interview on his channel with Emi right before the World Cup, and his time at Villa, right? And he was just like, Emi's actually like legitimately kind of a crazy person, but he's someone that you want on your team always. Yeah. And I think that's probably the best way to describe him, right? Is that you kind of have those guys that got maybe a little bit of a screw loose, but in the best way possible. They're never scared of the physicality of the game. They're never scared to defend their teammates. And sometimes, especially with celebrations, they go more than overboard.
Let's just put it this way: he's one of those guys where you hate him being your opponent, but then you have him on your team and you don't like him, but you're like, all right, we need you, so I'm just gonna be reserved towards you. It's fine.
Maybe you, bro. If it were me, like as a center back or an outside back, for me, I feel like he gives the defensive line energy. Like it's just like, dude, my keeper's that confident. His confidence, it makes me feel like there's this security blanket around us that like we're untouchable. Like no one can score us, no one can beat us. Emmy is just feeling it. I mean, that energy is contagious.
The only thing I'll say is that I'll put an asterisk on that one on the final because you can't bring up all these Mbappe antics when the dude scored 4 goals on you. Mbappe scored 4 goals on you, and you're acting like you own him. Like that's the part where I draw the line. Like Lloris wouldn't have done that to Messi. Like it's just he took it too far.
I don't think any keeper would have. I don't think any keeper would have done.
No, not at all. And so
I don't think anybody.
I get it. It's part of his personality. It's part of the Emmy like whatever figure. But to me, it's just like there's a certain line where you're like you're just being disrespectful now. Like. Especially because it's not the first time. If it's one time and you're running high and it's a World Cup final and you're the man and you stop PKs, fuck it, dude, go all out. But when you've done it against Holland, when you were saying that the group that you got against Mexico, Poland, and Saudi Arabia was way too easy, when you're making those comments off the field, like obviously the world's gonna fucking hate you. Like he knows what he's doing. And the biggest thing for me,
I mean, dude, it's no different than Conor McGregor doing it in the UFC or Richard
100%.
Sherman doing it in the NFL.
There's dudes that are like, just villains.
Said
bro.
it perfectly. Right before the final. Right, the world needs villains. You were prepared to be that guy in New York. I think Emmy's prepared to be that guy all the way through for this, for Argentina. And I have no problem with it. Like I said, I think as long as you can back it up. And granted, Andre, you're 100% right. The guy got scored on. I won't say 4. I'll say 3 because to me the PK shootout is whatever.
Sure. But still, though,
a hat trick, a hat trick. You didn't really bottle anybody up. He still did it. But with that said, if he won the trophy, it's like you got to let the man celebrate because at the end of the day he won it. So it's like whatever. But I understand where everybody's like, hey, fuck that guy. I don't want to deal with him unless you're on his team. I think like Jack from Deadball said it best. They know everybody hates him and they don't care. They don't want friends. Doesn't matter. Don't need new friends. It's just who they are. I love it, bro. I agree with you. Livakovic, either him or Bono, probably keepers of the tournament, but hard not to give it to Martinez over Lores considering the result. Alina, any disagreement there?
No, I agree with you guys. I also dislike Martinez as a person, especially. I mean, I knew he was kind of crazy, like the way he celebrated every penalty that he saved, even in the previous penalty shootout that they had. When the final, and he got the glove and like he did the where like he put the glove like in front of him, and he was like kind of making like disrespectful.
He was smashing the glove, yes sir.
Yeah.
Not for me.
I think Livakovic was the overall better keeper if you're looking at the overall package. I think Martinez is amazing at saving penalties, and that's what saved Argentina's ass because they had 2 penalty shootouts.
Saved his ass, but I will say the save in the final, nobody could take away from Emmy. The guy made a point-blank save at the most critical time of the game, and France would have basically won the match with that goal.
Yeah. Was it a save, or was it? Was it a save or was it a shitty?
That was 1,000% a save.
Shot.
1,000% a save. It was a leg save shot it that was going to the corner.
I wouldn't have shot it there.
I probably would have tried to chip. I probably would have tried to lift the ball. But yeah.
The ball's bouncing,
I said
keeper's going out.
Probably would have lifted. But it doesn't. But that doesn't mean it's a bad save or it's not a great save. Like anytime a keeper saves a 1-on-1 with a leg, like
Casillas against Robin in the 2010 World Cup final. Do you remember that one? Breakaway, Robin's coming at him, and then he just goes to one side.
Yeah, very similar. And plenty of other forwards would have finished it. Benzema, had he been in there, which I thought should have been the substitution, probably would have finished it.
When the keeper's that far out. No, I'm not taking anything away. Yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from
I don't think
that
Giroud would have caught the ball. I don't think he would have caught the I don't think he would have. Giroud is never on a breakaway. That never happened.
Yeah, he wouldn't have.
He would have caught the ball.
That first step,
because it was a through ball that split the defense, and that's how he got free.
That I keep rewatching that clip. I think Taylor Twellman tweeted it last night, and he was like, "Was this the best save of the game, tournament, maybe his life?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Like, just for what it meant for the moment, the occasion, like, of course." but I keep replaying it over and over again. And I'm like, it just sucks that it was Colo, right? Like if it was Mbappe, he buries it. If it was Griezmann, he buries it. If it was Dembele, he buries it. Even Giroud, like whatever. But if you find yourself in that position, he's young. Like you have no experience. You just react. He reacted to a volley that was bouncing. He was way too far ahead of it. Had to let it sit. And when he let it sit, the keeper was already there. So I don't know. Like if you see the video again, Mbappe's next to him, maybe, I don't know, 7 feet away, 8 feet away, wide open. All you got to do is tap it to the guy and GG's. So it's just the experience.
Okay, so but you know, as a striker, you're assuming you only have so much time. You're assuming that, and that's where everything like communication
World Cup
comes
final,
into it,
dude.
right? Like,
yeah, 100%.
Comms should have been. Someone should have been yelling that Mbappe should have been yelling for the ball, that he was wide open. But like that's not what happened, right? Like everyone almost let him do his thing, and like I said, it wasn't. In my opinion, it wasn't the right decision. But was it a bad shot? No. Like had Emmy not been there, it would have been tucked away in the bottom corner. But he saved it. So like I won't go as far as saying Giroud would score it, because I don't think he's ever in that position. Griezmann might have, like with his form in the tournament, I expect him to. Mbappe probably would have finished it. Dembele would have. Okay, I love Dembele, bro. He's a Barcelona player.
You probably skied it over the bar.
His thing. Not skied it, but like he would have hit it right at the keeper or something.
Yeah, like
Dembele was a power guy, a power and a speed. Yeah, not a finesse composed.
Yeah,
finish.
that's fair.
So you know, I like, you know, the right guy probably would have finished it, but nonetheless, still a good shot, still a good save. I think Emmy in the combined 11 deserves that spot. Okay, left back. This one's interesting because I felt that Theo had a great tournament, an interesting final. Like, it wasn't bad. It just was definitely below his standard. But how does that stack up against someone like Tagliafico, who started the tournament, probably had a great first half. Second half was definitely a little more exposed. Acuna came in halfway through. So there's kind of those three options. You have the two for Argentina that kind of served as like a tag team for Scaloni. And then you have, you know, Theo, who wasn't as stellar as the rest of the tournament, but I can probably say wasn't flat out beaten by anybody. Didn't get the ball enough either, probably on that far left side. But how do you guys feel? I mean, let's start with Alina here. Is there someone that you feel outright just won the left back spot?
Man, I was really looking forward to his performance in the final, Theo, I mean, and he really disappointed me. I don't know what it was. I know he got subbed off really early on, too. And for me, when he got subbed off, I was thinking, well, like the midfield, the Argentina midfield was just straight up destroying the French midfield. There was something there that wasn't clicking. Like, you had like Giroud and Dembele pressing a little bit, but they were so exposed. Like, there was like no link between the France defense and the France attack in that first half. So we never really got to see what Theo can do if he can actually get the ball and get it forward and get on that left flank. I do think that the goal that he got against Morocco was huge in the semifinal. And I think overall, I would put him as the left back of the tournament just because of the story he came into the tournament with as well. Like his brother got an ACL. Unfortunately, he got subbed on and he did amazing. So just for that fact, I don't think he's solely to blame for his performance in the final. So I think he would be my left back for the tournament.
Andre?
Yeah, I would agree.
Agree. Somebody else you throw in there?
I agree that he's the left back of the tournament. I think if we're talking about this game alone, I would give it to Acuna because he's also had a pretty solid run. Nothing flashy. The guy doesn't give you, like a Alphonso Davies like type of, work rate, but he gives you like he's solid in the back. He makes good decisions and he has experience. Like there's a reason why Acuna is playing on this team. You have the likes of Tagliafico. Yeah. Granted, left back I think is the one area where Argentina are the weakest at. They don't have a guy that's like, playing top level football right now anywhere where you'd be like, okay, this guy has to play, like a Theo Hernandez, for example. So, but I think coming on to a final like this with that much pressure and knowing that you're playing against some of the fastest players on the world, like the likes of Mbappe, if he switches to that flank, or, even Colo is pretty fast.
Colo's insanely fast. People forget that. To him and Thuram, I still have a ton of speed.
100%. Like, they have pace up there. So for you to come onto the game with that much pressure, and, you know, Tagliafico, like you said earlier, like, he didn't do a terrible job, but nothing special. And also the ball wasn't on that side of the field as much as it was on the left flank when Mbappe was attacking. I would give it to Acuna, just because it feels like, to me, he did enough to at least keep France at bay, and he didn't commit a mistake that ended up, you know, being a big occasion or a big goal. So for me, if you're looking at defending, he's a left back. He did enough. Did he do enough going forward? No, he didn't need to. They were up 2-0 already. Like, Di Maria was bossing that left side of the field for Argentina. So I would give it to Acuna.
Yeah.
In the final alone.
Those are all great points, 100%. For the final, it's so tough, right? Because Acuna has like a limited time of play, I guess you could say, in comparison to Theo. But like, Theo did get pulled off, and it's not because he was playing bad necessarily. They needed attackers, and he wasn't as effective as he'd been in previous games. Yeah, it's just tactics. Which is interesting, right? Because I feel like Dale's still very lethal going forward. I probably still would have found a way to move to 3 center backs, find a way to keep him in the game.
Yeah, play like a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 and keep him in the game as a left man.
Yeah, because he just drives forward so much. Yeah, I don't know. I think Deschamps' tactics, for me anyway, we'll talk about it. They were just a little bit off. I think he panicked a little bit too much in the first half. I think Dembele, sure, maybe you sub him off, but I think the Giroud one was very premature. And same thing with Theo. I think that they just could have found a way to keep him in the game, because he can cause havoc, a lot of it.
Yep.
But I'm inclined to kind of agree with Andre, not just based on the result, but based on what was asked of him, and how he executed it. Tagliafico, he was kind of just there. I think he did his defensive duties pretty well, but Acuna gives them something a little more if they needed to go forward, which at the end, and especially in extra time, they had to move forward.
Yeah.
They couldn't sit back and try and defend anymore. And he's earned
PKs for them in the tournament. He's earned like pretty pivotal free kicks around the box. He's got a good throw in. When you're looking at all the qualities of a left back, and again, I'm going back to, like, if I'm a coach, what do I like out of a left back? It's all those things, especially being solid in the back. If you're solid in the back, then you have the confidence to go forward, to take chances, to know that if you leave your spot, Otamendi can slide over. Like, there's just so many things that you can do once you do the fundamentals right. And I think Acuna, if we go back to like a tiebreaker, when you look at fundamentals, Acuna and Tagliafico, Acuna does it better than Tagliafico, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, no, that's actually a really, really good point. So, all right. Well, I think based on majority here, we'll probably go with Acuna at left back, which is totally okay. Moving into center backs, this one's really interesting because, to me, I think the one person I want to nominate, if we're kind of going round table here, I want to nominate one, and I'll open up the second one to whoever has an opinion. But I think Upamecano from France, someone that I was very critical of, mainly not because of his play leading up to the final, but his decision making. Yep. I think him and Theo got really, really lucky in the semifinals, even in the quarterfinals, with some of the decisions they were making against England or against anybody else. They just stupid, dumb mistakes, just fouls you don't need to give up, cards you don't need to entertain.
They got away with penalty kicks that should have been called.
Yeah, getting away with penalty kicks that should have been called. Yeah. It's just like it's almost like, you know, again, maybe a little bit of destiny on France's side, who knows? But it's like how
they got exposed.
How are they still making decisions like this and not getting more punished for it? But in the final, he made a crazy awesome save against Lautaro. Lautaro did take a little while to get the shot off, but the slide saved the game for France. And I think overall, he was having to deal with two strikers most of the time, one of them being Messi when he goes forward, and didn't jump into tackles, didn't make anything crazy. It was simple. He did what a center back should do. Keep everything in front of you, play safe, and make sure that you're not, exposing your team.
He won everything in the air. If you think about it, Argentina had that one chance at the very end in the air, but that's because the team was all broken up. Like, it was the Colo breakaway, and everybody had to drive back to defend, and Lautaro should have put that on front, like whatever. But that one I don't count. But if it's free kicks, corner kicks, or any type of set piece around the box, Upamecano won everything. So I think he was solid enough. He was one of those guys that I was looking for to step up finally, because to your point, he had been having this like run of like 2 or 3 games where he was shaky and he got away with it. And I'm like, okay, dude, like actually step up for the final. And I think he was one of the very few players on France who did. Yeah.
It was pretty ballsy that Deschamps started him over Konate.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah, I
Konate
agree.
is a little
Yeah.
more
Both of us-
experienced.
Yeah, when the lineup
Yeah.
came out, I was like, "What? How's Konate is like, on there?" But yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so again, that's my first pick here. I'm open to a second pick, but do you guys, I mean, Andre, do you have anybody that you would slot into that second center back? Do you disagree with Upamecano?
No, I agree. That was actually who I was going to bring up. I think Varane had a mid game. I think the first 30 minutes or so, he just couldn't find his feet. Like some of his passes were going out of bounds. Whereas Varane, like I'm used to seeing him at Real Madrid for so many years, he was always the guy who like calmed the team down. Like Ramos was like your horse in the back where he's like running around everywhere, like yelling. Varane was always so calm and composed that like sometimes he errs on the side of being too composed. And so I think for a final that was that intense, he was almost like way too chill. I'm like, dude, like slide tackle, bump somebody, foul somebody, like show me some aggression. And so that's what I want to see more of Varane. And a lot of the coaches for Real Madrid have said it. They love Varane because of the style that he plays, and they love Varane when he's when he's not under pressure. But when he's under pressure, sometimes you want a little bit more out of him. So I think Upamecano, if we're looking at like the 4 center backs in that game, I would say Upamecano is definitely one of the dudes that I put in there for sure.
Alina, who would you give me as the second one? Like if there was would it be, I mean, would we go for somebody from Argentina? I thought they were pretty good in the first half, but second half, definitely much more exposed. I don't know. Did Romero or Otamendi do enough to be in this lineup?
I mean, I think they did okay, especially in the knockout rounds, but in the final, like I feel like Otamendi completely gave that the second goal that Mbappe scored, just kind of just chipped it over him. And it was like almost like double. I don't know who was next. I think it was Romero next to whoever chipped it to Mbappe, but he almost like kind of lost focus for a little bit and went to like double press the guy that was chipping it, and Mbappe was like completely open. Excluding that, I do think that like one Argentinian defender does deserve to be there, and if I were to pick one, I would probably go with Romero.
Yeah, I think Kuti had a great game.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I think so too, and we'll list that as our second center back. I think Otamendi had a good tournament overall. I think he is kind of slow. It showed in the final. The penalty that they gave up that was first, and then of course the chip right back over the center back line, which was his side, that went to Mbappe's second goal like 30 seconds later. So that 2 minute stamp was everything.
I will say I was pretty surprised with how well Romero handled the pressure from Mbappe after the 80th minute. Because mentally, what does that do, right? You get a penalty kick, and then a minute and 23 seconds later, the game's tied. And you're like, holy shit, we literally had the trophy in our hands. But now we got to play 30 more minutes. Like, the game's not over yet. So knowing that and knowing that pressure on you, Otamendi was not going to be the guy to stop Mbappe. I do remember a couple of slide tackles from Cuti Romero. Granted, it was in the middle of the field, so like the ball was going to get stopped either way. But he was the one who would step up to the line and say, no, screw you. You're not going to pass. Like either you or the ball, but not both of you. And so I think Cuti Romero did like elevate his play after the 80th minute. So that to me edges him out over anybody else.
Yeah. I agree. I think I'm very critical of Kuti. Obviously, he's a Spur, and I can't stand that club. So it's really easy for me to just pick on him. But yeah, I think putting bias aside, he was, if we had to pick a second center back, he's probably the one. I think right back is very straightforward because at the end of the day, Andre and I were talking about it so much. It's basically Jules Koundé from France versus Molina from Argentina. And I really feel like as good as Koundé is, as great of a center back as he is, and even a right back, I would say he has experience there for Barcelona, and that's where Xavi likes to use him a lot, considering that we don't have like a reliable right back. But I think Di Maria was cooking. I think it's I don't know. Maybe I'm alone on this. I just thought Koundé did not have a great game at all. He looked like he was kind of out of place. The penalty kick wasn't his fault. It was on his side, but Dembele was the one that was defending. So I don't know. Maybe it was the combination of the two that got exposed. But I don't know. It looked like, and Molina didn't have a crazy good game. He just had a solid game. Like he played defense and he covered his side well. It didn't make any major mistakes. So I don't know if this one's super straightforward, but from my perspective, I just feel like Koundé did not have a good game, and and both goals in the first half, sorry, stemmed from the right side that was exposed.
Yeah,
Agree or
I agree.
disagree?
Yeah.
No, there's nothing to add. Yeah.
Perfect. That works. All right. Moving into the midfield. This one's interesting. Do we want to do the pivot and two mids, or how do we want to do this?
I've been liking that.
I think that's easier. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do a pivot, which basically puts Chouameni versus Enzo Fernandez. And so this one's really interesting. I thought both had great games. I don't want to factor in Chouameni's missed penalty kick. I think that's just experience. Lights were too bright.
Sucks.
It happens to young players. So that is what it is. But I thought both, like Chouameni had a better second half, way better second half than the first half. First half, that midfield, it wasn't even due to Enzo. It was just due to like they were just touching it around France for whatever reason. I think it was more Rabiot, in my opinion. But again, I don't know if that's a fair assessment. But if we could try to isolate Chouameni's performance against Enzo's, that's kind of how I want to do this. How do you guys feel about it? Is there one player that stood out more than the other?
Oh, that's a good question.
Who was Enzo? The player that won like young player of the tournament, was that him?
Yeah,
it was him. Okay.
Widely rumored to be heading to Liverpool, and it looks like if he does go, that will be Chouameni's like replacement. Essentially, they wanted Chouameni before he went to Real Madrid, and now Enzo may be the guy, the pivot that they want to bring in instead. It'll be really interesting to see. But how do you feel?
Yeah, I think in the final, I will give it to Enzo. There's a couple of reasons why. So Enzo was, I feel like the three in the middle for Argentina, at least the first 30 minutes, were so solid that there wasn't a single guy that stood out because of how well all three of them were playing. Like the press from DePaul, playing the ball out of the back through the midfield. And granted, Messi was dropping back a little bit more than usual until that like 8-10 role that we've been talking about, where we've seen him really this whole tournament. But Enzo did a fantastic job of playing side to side and also box to box. So from a covering space and mileage run across the field, I would give it to Enzo. I think Chouameni, to your point, he got better as the game progressed because Argentina, I don't want to say got worse, but they also got more complacent with knowing that they were up 2-0. So it's not like that midfield trio was still bossing the midfield. It's just Chouameni had more time on the ball. He had more space. And in turn, he was able to carry the ball forward many more times than he did in the first half. So Chouameni did get better, but I think if you were to stack them against each other, Enzo had a fantastic tournament. That goal against Mexico, nominated for one of the goals of the tournament. He won Young Player of the tournament. Like he was solid enough for me to earn, being on this 11. I don't know what you think, Alina, if you agree or disagree.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, like Enzo is a player that I didn't really know too much about before this tournament. So
yeah, that's
I feel like he is one of the breakouts. Like if you think of like, well, who was a breakout for me personally this tournament in terms of players I didn't know, or just like overall younger players, I would say it's Enzo.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Enzo's part of this, I don't want to call it a golden generation of Benfica players, but right now they just happen to have a very strong young team that convincingly went through groups in Champions League, and I expect to probably upset a few giants in the knockout rounds. Enzo's part of that team. But Benfica's about to make a shit ton of money. I'll just say this right now. Like they're about to sell off, a ton of assets. Enzo by himself will probably go for 110, 120 million. I think that they're about to rake in a shit ton of money. But anyway, we'll put Enzo in as our pivot. The two mids ahead of him, I think if I go back and look at the lineups for Argentina, it would be from Argentina. We're factoring in guys like Rodrigo de Paul, like Alexis McAllister, which I thought had a really great game. But it is too. But he came in later, and I mean we can include him for sure. I just don't know if he was more impactful necessarily. But so there's those three, and then from the French side, you have Rabiot. I can't remember who started next to Rabiot. Who was it?
Didn't Griezmann? Griezmann was playing like a
Griezmann.
Yeah, and Griezmann did not come off. I don't think he came off at all. Maybe even on an extra time either. I thought a pretty decent game. He did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So regardless, though. I feel pretty good about ruling out Rabiot off the bat because I just think he got exposed. I think he had a great tournament for who he is and like where he was with club football prior to entering the World Cup. But like, I don't know. I just think in the like, when I was watching the midfield get torn apart, I don't think it was like specifically because of Chouameni's positioning or even Griezmann. Griezmann didn't trail back sometimes, like he didn't defend always, but Rabiot sometimes just looked lost. Like he didn't know where to put himself to be in a good position to even cut passing lanes or to properly be a part of the build-up and attack. Like he was just kind of moving around in there. But again, maybe I'm being critical. So is there a midfielder that we can nominate right off the bat right now? Is it Griezmann? Is it? I personally think Alexis is somebody that I want to nominate because of the assist. But
yeah,
my opinion.
Well, so then I'll ask you the same question that we've been asking every round. Where do you put Messi? Do you put him at right wing or do you put him as a 10? Because that to me,
I'm going to put. Yeah, I think we need to put him as a winger because he's more of a striker.
But then
we could also put Messi at striker for this 11 too, if needed. Because again, I don't think France had an out and out striker.
No, and that was going to be my next point. Then if you put him as a wing, then you take away guys like you got to choose between Julian Alvarez or Di Maria, and then because obviously Mbappe is going to be there like unanimously. So then you start thinking like, fuck, which one do I pick? And then who goes as the 9? Is it Julian Alvarez or is it Messi? So Messi is going to define how we do this really midfield. Good point. Yeah.
Okay. For that reason,
dudes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was going to say for that reason, I would say we probably had to include Messi in the midfield because I don't take anything away from Di Maria has not looked that good since like 2014 at Real Madrid. Like he just hasn't.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen that version of Di Maria in a long time. And same thing with Julian. Julian's engine was everything for Argentina. Like the guy was just everywhere, just a thorn in the side. So I almost want to put him at striker because nobody for France stood out to me in a really big way.
I agree. That's
how do you guys feel about Messi and okay, let's do that.
I would go. I
like Messi. I think it's hard to argue, Marcin.
Yeah, I would go Messi there, and then obviously the 3 up top we know. You go Mbappe, Alvarez, Di Maria, and then the one question though that I do have is that who's going to be our 8? Because I love. I don't want to say love. I don't want to be caught on camera saying that I love DePaul. I do love what he did. I do love what he did for Argentina in this game. He was all over the field. Yeah. He shocked me with his endurance and stamina. Because I mean, there was a run. I think it was like in the 115th minute or so, towards the end of extra time, where he got the ball out of the right back. He started dribbling by 2 dudes. I was like, oh, he's gonna like run out of legs, and he still went down the line on whoever was the left back all the way to get a corner. I'm like, all right, dude, like you still have legs, and you're about to hit or shoot a penalty kick, most likely. So like that to me alone was like an indicator of like I was on the fence about him, but I was like, shit, he stepped up this game. And like I said, going back to the first half, we don't even have to talk about that because that midfield 3 was amazing. So DePaul is the one that stands out. I'm still a little bit bummed out that Griezmann didn't show up, man. He had shown up for every single game. He had such a great tournament up until the final, and then he just didn't do shit.
Yeah, it's
he had a lot of tackles too for a striker, which is interesting.
Yeah, he did 100%. Actually. I think Griezmann worked his ass off in a way that I haven't seen since like 2015 Atletico Madrid, where he was just all over the field, and that's what he was known for. I think that was obviously back when they were in back-to-back Champions League finals. His form didn't translate to the final well, but he didn't have a bad game either. It was kind of just like he was there. So what I'm torn with is Rodrigo De Paul versus Alexis McAllister. Only because De Paul's engine is fucking fantastic. And I'm critical of De Paul. I actually don't like him that much. I think he's kind of overrated with Atletico Madrid. I agree. He's physical. That's why I was like, I don't want to say that I love what he does for Argentina. Yeah, exactly. But I'm okay with making that concession here if we all feel really good about it. McAllister to me had the assist. He had more than a few dribble opportunities. He had a one-on-one with the keeper that he kind of missed. He kind of hit the ball on a run.
Yeah.
But I think Rodrigo is kind of maybe the unsung hero. He didn't have the stats to back up anything, but his engine was very, very present. Do we want to just name him as the final center mid here? Alina, do you feel good about that?
With it.
Yeah, I think we should. Like again, I'm also not the biggest fan of DePaul, but I saw him a lot because he used to play for Udinese before he came. Before he went to Atletico, so I had a lot of like time watching him. I know he was linked with Juve for a little bit too, but I think like Udinese are like asking for too much money, so there's like that kind of awkward relationship that I have with him. I thought he did great. I think when I think about like what kind of midfield players I like the most, it's always those that like keep running and they have a lot of stamina. Like I'm a big fan of Barella, and I think DePaul is really similar to Barella. Yeah. So I would say
love
DePaul
Barella. Okay. That works. So here's what I'm going to do, though. I'm going to tweak the lineup a little bit because, in my opinion, DePaul is, he's box to box, but he's still very much a pivot.
Yeah.
Like he's there to break up play. And so I think how we'll do this is a 4-2-3-1 essentially, right? With Messi playing as the cam, and behind him are Enzo and DePaul, which is kind of how Argentina line up in the final to begin with, anyway. And so that's our lineup. We got it. I think Andre highlighted perfectly. The front three is super straightforward. So from back to front, and again, we'll put this on the screen for anybody who's watching. It'll be Martinez at keeper, Acuna, Upamecano, Romero, Molina the back line, Enzo, DePaul, and Messi, pure Argentinian midfield, which makes sense considering how the game went. And then Mbappe, Di Maria, and Alvarez. I think that definitely was the combined best 11. As much as it pains me to include DePaul in there, I think at the end of the day, this is a fantastic 11. So, all in all, guys, we loved the World Cup. It was amazing. We had a fucking great time covering it on this show. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed all of our takes, all of our misses. I know we missed on a lot of our takes. That's totally okay. And we're going to keep offering more of those as time goes on. But with that said, World Cup 2022 in the books. It came way too fast. It went way too fast. I'm excited for the next one, obviously. To wrap up the show, get a few minutes left. I want to conclude today's episode with a quick preview. At the end of the day, while the World Cup is gone and we're kind of sad that that's happening, club football is back, baby. We're fucking here. I'm so excited for Prem to come back this coming weekend, right after Christmas. Boxing Day is here. Boxing Day traditionally is one of my favorite days of the year. It's like my Christmas. You get all of the matches, and it's just a whole day of watching matches right after you've opened up presents with family and whatnot. I love it. But that's what we have on the cards for this weekend. So as far as top 5 European football goes, some of those leagues are still on hold for the holiday break. But as England always does, they are setting everything back up and gearing right back up after the World Cup for Boxing Day. So with that said, a ton of games on the schedule for this coming Monday, the 26th. Andre, I think you and I are probably the biggest Prem fans in this room. And I thought say Alina's not. I think she might still be cheering for Manchester United to make top 4. We'll see.
Oh, Lord. After my Maguire jersey.
Yes,
that's true.
Well, hey, who knows? He might turn it around, and that's one thing I want to talk about a little bit today, right? The England form might have given some newfound confidence. Who knows? Yeah. I saw Rashford score yesterday in the Carabao Cup against Burnley after his stints with England. I think there's going to be a lot of shit that we have to unpack as the season gets right back into it. But let's talk about it really quick. What are we most looking forward to with Boxing Day coming back on the 26th? Do we think that the Prem's just going to pick up right where it left off, or are we expecting some big surprises?
I have 3 storylines that I've been marking on my calendar, and I cannot wait. Number 1, your Gooners. Are they going to be able to keep up? And is it going to be a tale of two halves, or is it going to be status quo? We're going to build towards the horizon. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Tough game against West Ham, London derby. So
tough 4 games, bro.
It's you guys have a big run.
I'll keep going. I'll come back to Arsenal's next 4 matches, but what are those other 2 that you have?
So Arsenal's 1. Number 2 is Leicester. How do they bounce back? Do they even bounce back? Do they get out of that relegation zone? It's one of those teams that I think became a pretty romantic story, obviously, when they won it with Ranieri and all those guys, with Vardy and Schmeichel and all that. But I'm like, it just sucks to see them at the bottom of the table. So I want to see Leicester bounce back. Tough game against Newcastle, but I also want to see if Newcastle is doing the same thing that they were doing and keep that run of form with Almiron, Bruno Guimaraes, Saint Maximin. Like, they just have a sick fucking team. And Trippier, too, who had a great tournament for England. So that's my second one. And my third one, the boys. Leeds.
Yes, sir.
We've got City on Wednesday, so I cannot wait for that game. I'm off work all of next week, so I get to watch every single game. It's going to be awesome.
Hell yes.
But it's a big game because, Jesse Marsh had an interview, during the World Cup, and he was like, they asked him, like, who are you rooting for? He's like, I don't give a shit about international football. He's like, it's a completely different sport. And it's true. Yeah. I was like, I never heard a coach say that, but it's a different sport. He's like, I give a shit about my guys. I give a shit about club football. And he's like, I've got some Americans on my team. All right, I guess I'll root for the U.S. It was really funny how he said it. But that being said, that's why I'm looking forward to. It's true. That's why I'm looking forward to see what he does, because we had a really good, do you call it winter break, whatever, when teams were like, the players who don't go to the World Cup are playing friendlies and they go to Spain to nice weather, whatever. We beat Real Sociedad 2-1. We beat Valencia. We've played some pretty big teams and we've gotten results. I think we went like 3 out of 3 or 4 out of 4. So I want to see that momentum keep building. So those are my 3 teams that I'm paying attention to, at least in the
I agree.
First couple weeks here.
I think that's awesome. And to go back to what you said about Arsenal, like, will Arsenal continue on this form? I don't want to go too deep into this, but just to offer a preview.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Wrap up December, we have West Ham and Brighton. West Ham's at home, Brighton's away. Okay. 2 massive games, in my opinion. And then right after that, we have Newcastle at home and the North London derby at Spurs. So those are the next 4 Premier League matches. Now, keep in mind, too, we're doing it without Jesus. I knew that the World Cup was going to fuck us in one way or another. Like, I knew something was going to happen. It's just a matter of who it was. I think this was the best case scenario. The worst case scenario would have been a defender going. If we had lost a big defender, I think I would have been in shambles. I think Gabriel Jesus, considering we've only had him for not even 6 months, we've had him for 4 months maybe. He's the one that is the most, I don't want to call him replaceable. I'm not saying Gabriel Jesus is replaceable. Please don't say that in the comments. I don't want to get torn apart. What I'm saying is, I think he's the one that we should be able to, like, backfill. Like, keep in mind, Eddie Nketiah was scoring against Chelsea and other teams when we didn't have a striker when Aubameyang left last season. So, like, I think that in our system, somebody can make it work. It's just a matter of who. But I think the other pieces are very crucial. So I don't know. I think we'll see. But the next 4 games are super difficult, and I'm very nervous. If we get maximum points from at least 2, maybe 3, I think it's a W. I think it's a massive W for Arsenal fans, and we just keep this train rolling. If we don't, if we draw 2 of them and lose 1, I'm very worried. Very, very worried. I still think no matter what, we have to make signings in January. I think we need who's the is it Mudryk? What's the guy from Ukraine?
I keep reading about it. Arteta really wants him. Yeah. I think it's like Mukalo, Mudryk, or something like that. The guy is an insane winger. I think we still need a kind of a striker, but I do think we have players that can play that position for a couple months if needed. So I think Martinelli can slide into the 9.
He can. He's an out-and-out attacker, and I think that he's someone that offers great finishing, great speed, a ton of versatility. Like, I think he will be a really interesting option. But nonetheless, this first 4 matches, man, they have me fucking freaked out. So we'll see. We'll see. But at the end of the day, I think it was best possible scenario for the Gunners heading out of the World Cup. Do we think, before we wrap up, top 4 is going to stay the same come, let's say April, May, right? Heading into the final month of the season, do we expect the Premier League table to be anywhere close to what it is? And I'll read off the top 6 really fast, okay? It is Arsenal, City, Newcastle, Spurs, United, Liverpool. And from there is Brighton and Chelsea. So Chelsea's at 8th right now. I don't know if they're making signings like crazy right now. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they find a way to get back into top 4 conversations. But, I mean, Alina, you had United finishing top 4. They're right outside at 5th. Spurs are in their way. I don't know. I mean, is Conte going to bring in more players that helps them? Do you think United did their players see some confidence from the World Cup they could take with them?
I think Arsenal are going to drop out of the top 4 hardcore. I'm sorry to say that, Jose. I don't know if you watched the game. By the way, we should have talked about it briefly. The Juve versus Arsenal game.
The friendly?
Yes, the friendly.
No, I don't watch friendlies.
Is it because you guys lost? It was 2 own goals against Juve's like B team, which is interesting.
You know what? We should play in Europa League, and I guarantee it goes the exact opposite.
Maybe. Well, I don't care about Europa League though. Just like you don't care about friendlies.
That's fair. That's fair. I think I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I don't see Spurs dropping out of top 4. I think top 4 is a fucking lock. I think it's just a matter of who wins the race. But I will, you know, I'll open up for opinion, for debate. If anybody in this watching thinks Arsenal are going to drop all the way out of top 4, please let me know. I am down to have this argument in the comments, 100%. Let's leave it open for debate. But the question with United, will United finish top 4 like you thought they would at the beginning of the season, and why?
I think they will, because not that they have, and I hate to say this, but the Ronaldo problem solved. I think they're going to have more of a... I feel like everyone's going to know what's happening. I don't know if there was like issues in the locker room with Ronaldo and whatnot, and
there probably was
some friction with Ronaldo, not just Ronaldo and the coach, but like Ronaldo with other players as well. Because I feel like there must have been something there. I do think they can finish top 4. I'm hoping they can finish top 4, because I don't know if our bet is still up. When I said, I think like United were like bottom 2, and I was like, no, they're going to finish top 4.
Yeah. So, and we said that. So the bet was
no signings.
I'm down to keep it. The bet was no signings. They signed Anthony right afterward, but he's been kind of a mixed bag. Like I don't know if he's impacted United like in a giant way.
I'm still down for that.
Yeah, I'm still down for it too. So who do you think falls out of top 4 if they were to make it? Would it be? Is it just easy to say Newcastle because they haven't been this high up the table in years? Or, in all honesty, like the team that I think is, maybe I'm wrong. I think Conte is going to find a way to fuck it up. Unless he makes real signings, like that team is not dangerous to me. Like Harry Kane, not dangerous. Heung-min Son, not dangerous. Yeah, I think they'll find a way. I mean, look at Harry Kane. He can't make a penalty in the fucking World Cup. Anyway, I think at the end of the day, they're going to find a way to be the truest form of themselves, in my opinion. But maybe, again, I don't know. Like, Alina, what do you think? Is it Newcastle? Is it Tottenham? Like, who? You think it's Arsenal that falls out and Man United fall in? Man. Yeah,
I think it's going to be... I think it's going to be Arsenal that falls out. I also think that Newcastle are going to fall out eventually. I'm expecting a resurgence of Liverpool a little bit. I think they're going to finish the season strong, much better than they started. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Much better than they started. If they sign a guy like Enzo in January, it'll dramatically change that midfield. I don't know, with Luis Diaz being out for like 4 months and Salah being out of form a little bit, I don't know if they have enough goal scoring power just yet. Like Darwin's, I mean, he's been so hit or miss. I don't know what to expect with that guy. But I do think right now they're in 6th. I expect that if I had to put my stamp on this top 4, I expect it to be Arsenal, City, Newcastle, Liverpool. I think United finished 5th. I think they finished exactly where they are now. And I think it's probably, in my opinion, warranted, because think about where they were when the season started. If they finish top 4, it'll be amazing. It's kind of like where Arsenal were last season, right? Where we started off the opening 2 matches. Both were L's, 0 points, 0 goals. And we got scored on 9 times. That's how Arsenal started last season. Got really close to finishing top 4, but ultimately finished 5th due to lack of experience. I think United are in that same boat, and I'm expecting them to be a crazy better team next season. But I just don't know if they have enough experience in that side to turn it fully around. But who knows? I could be wrong. If I am wrong, I think they take Tottenham's place and Tottenham falls out. I just think that there's not enough firepower. They get 3, maybe 4 chances a game, tops. So I don't know if the World Cup changed that, but we'll see. Andre, agree or disagree? Do you have a different opinion before we wrap up?
No, I had my top 4. I would give you my top 5. I had City winning it, unfortunately for you. There's just a much deeper squad. Arsenal finished 2nd. I have Liverpool finishing third. I think they have a just completely different second half of the season. I have Newcastle basically just squeezing into Champions League. I mean, they're the only team that's, when you look at the last 5, they're the only team that have won 5 in a row. So they're streaky,
amazing, man.
But we'll see if
amazing.
they can keep up. Yeah. And I mean, really, they didn't have any players outside of Trippier, I don't think, that went to the World Cup, right? Guimarães for Brazil, but he didn't really play.
He didn't play. No.
Yeah. So anyway, they should be healthy. So anyway, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, and then at 5th I have Spurs. I think United get dropped down. I don't think they have enough.
I think it's going to be crazy. I don't know. Not the Prem shaping up this way so far, but man, I mean, I don't think anybody and their mom had Newcastle. I don't think anybody had them this high
or Chelsea
when the season started.
Chelsea at 8th,
or yeah. Chelsea 8th.
We'll
see if they turn that around. Chelsea's a really interesting team.
Yeah, and they're only a couple points behind Liverpool. They're only 5 points behind Man United in 5th. And, the other thing, too, that we have to look at is cups. So whoever wins FA and Carabao Cup getting those extra spots for Europa League next year. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Chelsea had a crazy amount of signings before the season started. They're making more already prior to the January transfer window. A lot to be unpacked before this second half, I guess we call it, of the season kicks off, guys. Biggest point we can make is that club football is returning. We get to, kind of feed our addictions even more now that the World Cup has ended. And I'm so excited. There are games on today that I'm excited to watch. So nonetheless, this is it. Episode 21 in the books. I want to thank Alina, Andre. Thank you both again for joining. This was great. I loved it. On the next episode, which may not take place until right after the new year. I think next week may be kind of our first week off for 2022. But I think, with the holiday break, it's totally understandable. We're going to come back in January, early January, ready to upload episode 22 and keep this train rolling. So with that said, though, just really quickly want to thank anybody who's tuning into this for the time, for the attention. We really appreciate it. I can't say that enough. And hopefully you allow us to continue bringing more hot takes around this beautiful game that we love so much. But it doesn't end with the World Cup. We're going to keep this going for the remainder of the 2022-23 season. And then the summer window will be here before you know it. And we're really pumped about that. So from everyone here at Box to Box and at GOLZtv, again, my name's Jose, joined by Andre and Alina. Thank you all so much. Have a safe and happy holiday season. And we'll see you guys in 2023.